and we are here on the ETBU Coaches Show. Mark T. Robinson with head acro and tumbling coach Farrah Dunaway. Coach, you guys are coming to the kind of the tail end of what was an inaugural season for you guys, and everybody, as I said, has been excited about being a part of the new sport here at ETBU. So from your own perspective, you guys had the meet last weekend against Concordia, Wisconsin. And you guys always set out personal goals for your team to continue to grow, continue to get better. So from your perspective, what did you see as a coach, and did you guys meet those goals that you set out to attain?
Yeah, so last meet was a little bit different from what we had done in the last two meets when we were on the road, because we had what we thought was going to be a season-ending injury for one of the girls, and so it was a hand injury, and she's in everything. So she's a vital tumbler. She's in mid layers and everything that we do. So in efforts to save her hand, we had to pull her from all of those events, and so really survival without an integral athlete was one of the goals. But going into that also, one thing that we had been focusing on is really just learning to abide in the Lord, not only in our daily walks, but throughout the meet. You know, the girls work so hard training for all these different skills, and you know, when they get to a certain level of ability or execution, it's so easy for them to only rely on their own strengths to make things happen. And so one of the things that we've tried to do is just allow the Lord to work through them as athletes once they get to their max. So, you know, if there's still more that is required of them as athletes, once that athlete gets to their max emotionally, their max physically, you know, what's left. And so what we've tried to do is just have them just learn to, you know, you'd be a good steward of what you're called to do on that mat and in training and getting ready for that meet, and then while you're competing, and then the rest of it, you've got to let it go. You've got to give it to the Lord and let Him just maximize everything, and let the Holy Spirit just go from there. And it was, I guess, more crucial to have that mindset on this one, because we were going into it with doing not the same acros and not the same meet format that we're used to doing. So I use a lot of metaphors and a lot of like hands-on things. So one of the things that we did before the meet was I got them light blue balloons, and that just represented their ability to hold on to their own physical understanding or their own physical strength, their own physical capabilities, or, you know, let it go. And so we went out to the field behind the gym, and I played a song by Skillet, Let Me Let Go, and or Give Me the Strength to Let Go. And they just all went out there and just prayed individually. And I told them, you know, if you get to the point where you can legitimately say, okay, God, I have been a good steward of the training, and I've been a good steward of, you know, doing what I need to do to prepare for this moment, and then after this, I'm going to give it to you. If you can legitimately say that, then you release that balloon. And if not, don't release that balloon. Don't do it just because everybody else is. And it was really cool to see that, you know, some did it automatically. And then others, you could tell that they were really struggling with the fact of, can I give you control, God, after I'm, you know, to my max capability, my max physical ability. So that was really cool to watch. During the meet, it was neat to see that some of their scores, even though we changed what their elements were, they'd gotten the best scores of all season for those heats. So that was really nice to see. And it was great to see that because they have the ability to let go, that when something didn't go perfectly, it didn't crush them. They knew that it wasn't theirs to hold on to. It was completely the Lord had control of it, and that was the end of it. You know, so we had goals of just being good stewards of what we were called to do in there. Be strong, be focused, and then after that, the hay is in the barn. You know, you got to give the rest of that control to the Lord to let Him do with it as he does, and he did, and we had a great time. The girls were optimistic the whole time, despite the fact that they could have been, whining and complaining because they didn't get to do some of the elements that they're used to doing with all of the athletes well or in good health. So again, as a coach, you just sit there and you just watch them grow into these just not only a strong athlete getting really good at their sport, but just them as people and as mentally tough human beings that are able to face adversity and then let it go.
That's awesome, and it is great to see the parallel between spiritual life and athletics as well, and that has a lot to do with your performance and how you see yourself and your identity as well. And I just love that also about just the entire community of ETBU. That's what it's all about, Christ-centered first, and then you're an athlete afterwards, and that's amazing. And I was wondering why I was seeing some balloons around as well last week.
Well, it's funny because there was a baseball game going on
Yes.
at the same time. In the direction of the wind, it literally took them over the baseball field. And before it gets to the baseball field, it has to pass a cluster of trees. And we heard some popping going on. So I cannot confirm nor deny the fact that maybe some of them even landed in the baseball field or in their practice area. So I'm not really sure about that because we let it go. So
Yes, absolutely. And I think now that I think back on, I do think I remember seeing a balloon like just flying over, and we were just all absolutely. That is awesome. And so you kind of talked about having to lose a player to injury, and for acro and tumbling, that becomes a very interesting dynamic because, as you said last week, it's all about safety, and it's all about trusting that that girl's going to catch you, or that person's going to be able to hold you up. So how does that kind of change the dynamic in that respect when you have to replace someone now in that new position?
So ideally, you would be able to replace. However, with the way that the sport is and the way that these athletes are, you don't always have that option because every one of the athletes has their own, I would say, just area of strengths. And you have some that maybe their area of strength is tumbling. And if you have an overflow than the required amount of tumblers, then you can sub that in. But when you're talking about the way that our team is made up this year with a smaller roster, you don't really have those people that can go in there and do everything. I mean, that's a smaller, unique kind of individual. So really what ends up happening is you have one athlete that maybe did all these roles normally. So when you sub in because of injury, it takes 5 or 6 people to go in different areas of specialization as opposed to one person being able to sub completely. So if this person was in the tumbling heats, I would have to pull another tumbler to do that. Or if she was a mid-layer base on a pyramid or another structure, then if we had someone that had that physical capability, then we can put that person in. But, with a small roster, you don't always have that option. So you fill in where you can, and then outside of that, as a coach, I have to think, is it worth the risk to try to, makeshift this structure? Or is it more wise to just pull that structure all together and get that neutral penalty just to save your team's, safety? So there were times where I was able to sub in, and then other times I just felt, it's just not in the best interest of my athletes to try to, makeshift that structure when it just wasn't worth it to me to lose somebody else because of injury if it didn't work out.
Absolutely.
So you just got to have the mindset of I'm going to be wise for my team, whether it results in a neutral penalty or not. I just got to do what's best for them as a program long term as opposed to right now.
Absolutely. And so you guys have your final meet of the season coming up here in Ornelas against a ranked opponent, I believe, number 6 in the nation. So going into this week's meet and just looking at the overall performance from your team this season, what type of grade would you give this inaugural season? It's always kind of tough with a new sport with a new team, new expectations. So what grade did you give this season?
What I would give, I'm a very critical person. Which is crazy because in everything that I've coached, it's my job to assess possible injury, assess what could be wrong, could go wrong, and to, be overly critical and to fix it, because we're being judged. But I would be lying if I said that they didn't deserve an A just because, they're just great athletes. They're great people. They've worked hard. They've not given up. I'm not easy on them. We do a lot of fun things. I probably allow more than I should this first year, but I push them, and I don't tell them that something's good when it's not. And I don't sugarcoat much with them. I don't let it become easy for them, and they've flourished. They've done well. They've mentally been able to just keep going. They've lifted each other. They've encouraged each other. They've built something that's really pretty cool. And I would be amiss to say that it was completely all them too, because I know that God's grace is huge in this. We would have not been able to even finish out the season if God's hand wasn't on their bodies, on their minds, and on the whole just building of this program. You're never going to have a season where you don't have adversity, or you don't have obstacles, or you don't have something that you just have to get over and overcome. And I just really feel like this is a very special group of athletes, and and I hope that future teams within this program have that same chemistry, have that same persevering mindset that this team has had. Sure, there's things that we could and we will do better in the future, but a lot of those are more sport related. I've had to have such a huge learning curve for the sport and the scoring system in and of itself. I think I'm finally starting to get it, which season's almost over, but so in that regard, there's a lot that I still have to learn and get better at. But as far as the season, I don't know if I'd change a thing. I want those girls to be able to leave this season and leave this program just believing that they did the very best that they could have, that they gave everything to make this first year everything that it could be, and then leave with gratitude and joy and a sense of, hey, I did that, we built that. And I think that they'll be able to do that.
Absolutely. And one thing I will say as well is I remember when we were just introducing the sport and we were doing our first coaches show, and how nervous you were to be in front of the camera, and you handled it like a pro. Well, you have done a fantastic job leading this program, and we will be here cheering you guys on at Arnellis Gymnasium. Final meet of the season for acro and tumbling. Come out and support the team. It starts at 7 o'clock p.m. Once again at Arnellis Gymnasium. And if you want to stay up to date on all things ETBU athletics, go to goetbutigers.com or follow us on social media at goetbutigers. Marty Robinson, Farrah Dunaway. We'll be back here on the ETBU Coaches Show with more.